gampang. Jai ni jam samanggari.
Rhinos, some of the most well-known yet most bizarre mammals alive today. With their prominent nose horns and thick hides, these unlikely horse relatives have cemented themselves as being among some of the most recognizable animals of Africa and Asia. But with that fame comes a curse. That curse being a gradual decline in numbers brought about by numerous factors over a great span of time. It has especially hit hard two unique island-dwelling species from Indonesia. One of these Indonesian rhinos is a true relic, whose ancestry bears close ties to an ancient lineage that dominated the northernmost parts of Eurasia during the Ice Age. Welcome to our very first episode of Extant Files, where we will explore the Sumatran Rhino, the last woolly rhino. While these rhinos still persist, albeit barely in the modern age, our history with the Sumatran rhinoceros stretches farther back into prehistory. Originally, Sumatran rhinos and their kin were likely to have coexisted alongside the erectines, better known as Homo erectus, who had crossed from Africa into Asia around 2 to 1.7 million years ago during the Pleistocene epoch. Around 45,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, that being our species, had migrated to China, possibly from a route in Mongolia or even farther north in Siberia. The dating of early human remains in Southeast Asia are more dispersed, with the earliest being based on fragmented remains of a leg bone from Laos that date to about 86,000 years ago. Additionally, two teeth from Sumatra, believed to have belonged to a human, are dated to be approximately 73,000 to 63,000 years old. Around 60,000 to 50,000 years ago, humans would reach the Indian subcontinent after the Toba eruption, a volcanic event that occurred on the island of Sumatra, the aftermath of which ended up causing a climatic shift that would see much of South to Southeast Asia being coated in ash. This event would have simultaneously impacted the Sumatran rhinos that existed at the time. Hunting by early humans upon Sumatran rhinos may have occurred as early as the late Pleistocene, though our earliest evidence comes from Holocene-dated findings from Borneo's Nia Cave, which showed that these early humans cleared a forest for what could be agricultural reasons, and from which they would have likely hunted the native fauna, among which being rhinos. Over the course of time, this species would eventually become well ingrained in various cultures of East Asia during the Holocene epoch. In China, many art pieces ranging from belt hooks and wine vessels have been uncovered depicting rhinos, dating to the Zhou, Shang, and Han dynasties. Several of these have two horns, meaning that they could be depicting a Sumatran rhinoceros, as the only other rhino living in China at the time, the Javan rhino, only possesses a singular horn. Additionally, in the year 166 AD, merchants from the Roman Empire would cross through Southeast Asia on their way to China, delivering several gifts that they had acquired while in Indochina, some of which being rhino horns which may or may not have belonged to the Sumatran rhino. If true, this could very well represent the first documented European contact with this animal in some form, though this remains up for speculation as other rhinos such as the aforementioned Javan rhino are known from the area. Sumatran rhinos were also ingrained in several Southeast Asian cultures, as mentioned by various colonial naturalists and hunters during their travels from the 19th to 20th centuries. Sumatran rhinos are believed to have a bizarre trait in Myanmar, formerly Burma, of eating fire. The legends would often tell of these rhinos following smoke trails to campfires and destroying the campsites in the process. Another Burmese legend is that Sumatran rhinos would often come together during a full moon, making July the best time to hunt them. In the late 13th century, during Marco Polo's travels to Sumatra, he encountered animals that he described as unicorns and gave them the name Rhinoceros. Today we now know that he was likely referring to Sumatran rhinos, making this potentially the earliest confirmed instance of Europeans encountering this unique species. The most impactful encounter occurred in 1793 when one was shot in West Sumatra. The specimen was sent to English naturalist Joseph Banks, who in the same year published a scientific paper discussing this peculiar species. Dr. William Bell, a surgeon stationed in Sumatra and working for the Dutch East India Company, examined the rhino specimen, stating that it resembled a hog in appearance. In 1814, Saxon anatomist and paleontologist Johann Fischer von Waldheim described it as the species Rhinoceros sumatrensis. English anatomist Joshua Brooks, who owned a stuffed specimen of a Sumatran rhinoceros, believed that the species was distinct enough from other rhinos to be in its own separate genus, classifying it as Didermoceros in 1828. In 1841, the genus name Dicerorhinus was proposed by German zoologist Konstantin Wilhelm Lambert Gloger, a name meaning two-horned rhino in Greek. In 1977, Gloger's genus name was accepted by the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature, and as of today, the species is officially recognized as Dicerorhinus sumatrensis. What makes the Sumatran rhino distinct from its other Asian relatives is that it's not only the hairiest modern-day rhino species, but it's also the only one in Asia to possess two horns, unlike the Indian and Javan rhinos, which only have one horn each. Their hair is generally reddish-brown in color, and the density varies upon individuals, with some being relatively hairless. Like others in its family, it also possesses a hooked lip. The only species lacking this trait is the African white rhinoceros. While still fairly large by the standards of most insular hoofed mammals, it is easily the smallest of the modern-day rhinos, with wild mature individuals measuring at 1 to 1.5 meters, or 3.3 to 5 feet in length, and weighing on average 598.7 to 948 kilograms, or 1,320 to 2,090 pounds. However, some captive individuals have been estimated to reach weights of up to 2,000 kilograms, or 4,410 pounds. While not the most physically impressive of the modern-day rhinos, this species can still very well be considered one of the many giants of the Sunda Islands, on top of being the most unique of all the Holocene species. As previously mentioned, Sumatran rhinos are a singular living species distant from the Indian and Javan rhinos, belonging to the genus Dicerorhinus. Currently, the genus contains at least 3 other species. The oldest described species is D. guebenensis, which was excavated in the Irrawaddy sediments of central Myanmar in 2008 and is dated to have been around from the late Pliocene to early Pleistocene epochs. However, D. guebenensis may not be the earliest representative of the genus, as in 2023, more fossil remains have been found in the Irrawaddy Formation belonging to a currently unidentified species within Dicerorhinus, which date all the way back to the late Miocene epoch, which helps us realize that the Sumatran rhino's lineage has existed for far longer than previously thought, and that their evolutionary history would have occurred in Myanmar, or at the very least somewhere in Southeast Asia. On top of that, some scientists believe that D. guebenensis may instead be a specimen belonging to the modern species due to cranial similarities. In 2014, another species, D. fusuiensis, was described from early Pleistocene dated fossils excavated from the Yanlang Cave in southern China. It was, however, initially classed into the genus Rhinoceros and believed to have been ancestral to the Javan rhino before it was reassessed into Dicerorhinus in 2023. The modern-day species also possesses 3 subspecies. These include the western Sumatran rhino, D. sumatrensis, which is native to Sumatra and formerly to the Malaysian peninsula, the Bornean Sumatran rhino, D. sumatrensis harrisoni, which is native to the island of Borneo, and of course the northern Sumatran rhino, D. sumatrensis laciotus, which was native to mainland Asia and had the widest range of all 3 subspecies. The Sumatran rhino and its relatives also bear a strong genetic link to 2 extinct lineages. These include Stepanorhinus, which consists of species such as the narrow-nosed rhino and the Merck's rhino, and Coelodonta, better known as the woolly rhinos. Both genera first appeared during the Pliocene and quickly spread into both Europe and Asia. Rhinos were easily the most common rhinos in Eurasia during the interglacial cycles of the Pleistocene, being found as far north as the British Isles and as far east as Yakutia or the Sak Republic in Siberia. While it varied by species, the genus generally inhabited a mixture of grasslands and forest biomes, and thrived in a more cool, moist climate that is similar to today's climate in the region. While they tolerated the cold, they weren't as suited for extreme conditions as the woolly rhino and its kin. In fact, it is speculated that the remains of Merck's rhinos in China could indicate the presence of a relict population that migrated south to warmer regions during the start of the late glacial maximum. The narrow-nosed rhino seemed to have fared better than its relative, however, as it was more adjusted to a grazing diet and inhabiting open habitats. The European population of Rhinos seemed to have persisted in Portugal, where fossilized teeth of it and an elephant, Paleoloxodon antiquus, have been found, seeming to suggest that the Iberian Peninsula was the last stronghold for many temperate megafauna during the Pleistocene, before they eventually died out. Between the two, Coelodonta was significantly more content during glacial cycles, as the genus was well accustomed to inhabiting harshly cold regions. This could likely come down due to their origins in the Tibetan Plateau with the Pliocene-dated species C. tibetana. This allowed them to spread farther north with C. antiquitatis, or the woolly rhino, becoming widespread throughout Eurasia during the late Pleistocene Ice Age. Historically, the genus Rhinus has also been used as a wastebasket taxon and included a wide variety of prehistoric rhino species. Many of them have been moved to Rhinus, including the previously mentioned narrow-nosed rhinos and Merck rhinos, alongside S. etruscus from Europe and an indeterminate species from Japan that was previously called D. nipponicus. In 2023, a Miocene-dated species from the Hebei province in China, known as D. shujianensis, has been reclassified into the genus Lartetotherium, which was previously only found in Europe. In 1966, an African species also dating to the Miocene known as D. leakii was then moved to a new genus, Rhingoceros, in 2010. Several other Eurasian species such as D. megarhinus, D. schleiermacheri, and D. ringstromi were then moved to a new genus, Dioplis. One of the most peculiar cases of genus revisions was the movement of D. caucasicus into the Miocene genus Chimentodon, a member of the rhino subfamily Elasmotherinae. Overall, the Sumatran rhino has a very enigmatic family tree due to the various revisions, but its phylogeny is perhaps the most fascinating among all the modern-day rhinos, as it shared close ties to the rhino pioneers of the mammoth steppe that spread throughout Eurasia. Though neither of these Ice Age behemoths had reached the Americas, with most of the other megafauna, they certainly left a lasting impression in the cold reaches of the Old World, a legacy that the Sumatran rhino maintains in the tropical mountains of Asia's southern regions. As of today, the Sumatran rhino is one of 3 living species native to Asia. Unlike its prehistoric relatives, however, Sumatran rhinos generally inhabited the southern parts of the continent. Their mainland population was spread to the Himalayan foothills of India, Nepal, and Bhutan, where they could have historically encountered the Indian and Javan rhinos. Thanks to fossil evidence, we also know that the modern species also inhabited southern China during the early Pleistocene epoch and possibly even earlier, a range that they would have maintained until the early Holocene. Today's Sumatran rhino populations are situated in Southeast Asia, primarily on the Indonesian islands of Sumatra and Borneo, with a possible survival on the mainland country of Myanmar. Historically, they've also occupied the countries of Thailand and Cambodia. This species in particular is very solitary, elusive, and as many zookeepers and conservationists have learned, hard to breed, as females will only ovulate when a suitable male is in close proximity, a feat that is difficult to achieve when captive individuals are dispersed in zoos across the world. Surprisingly, they are possibly the most vocal rhino species alive today, as they've been observed producing a great array of whistles and whines. Some have even been compared to sounds made by gibbons. Their preferred habitats consist of biomes containing dense foliage and a more tropical environment. These include rainforests, cloud forests, and swamps, along with also inhabiting mountainous terrain. In the Cincinnati Zoo, 2 rhinos developed eye problems, which the keepers deduced were caused by prolonged exposure to sunlight due to the rhinos being out in the open instead of being hidden under a canopy as they would be in the wild. On top of their preferred range, they're also excellent swimmers, even being reported swimming out to sea. They've also been documented engaging in seasonal movements, primarily traveling up to higher altitudes to avoid floods during monsoon seasons, descending back down when the temperature cools down following the rainfall, and traveling back up to higher ground during dry seasons, possibly to evade insects such as horseflies. These rhinos are also fond of wallowing in mud holes, which generally aids them in regulating their body temperature. In terms of diet, Sumatran rhinos are mostly browsers, preferring to feed on leaves from tree branches, tips of plants growing on the forest floor, and even fruit that falls from trees. Salt licks are also important for Sumatran rhinos as they feed on the minerals found within that are beneficial to their health, along with also being useful for males to pick up on the scent of an ovulating female. Sumatran rhino habitats tend to overlap with those of Asian elephants and fellow Perissodactyl, the Malayan tapir, along with other common hoofed mammals such as deer and wild boar. In prehistory, several genera of Chalcotheres, such as Hesperotherium, Nestoritherium, and possibly Ensilotherium also thrived in China from the late Pliocene to the early to mid-Pleistocene epoch. Prehistoric hippos such as Hexaprotodon were also common in South to Southeast Asia during the Miocene to Pleistocene epochs. Surprisingly, they have a rather passive coexistence with elephants, as the two animals are known to share trails in their habitats. These trails help the rhinos travel between feeding grounds, salt licks, and for whenever a seasonal movement is required. Though it is unknown what their interactions with past proboscideans were like, fossil records do show the presence of elephant relatives such as Stegodon and Cynomastodon in China and farther into Southeast Asia. Primates are also a common inhabitant of the Sumatran rhino's range. These can include monkeys such as langurs, macaques, and the proboscis monkey, and apes such as gibbons and orangutans. During the Pleistocene, this rhino's Chinese range may have overlapped with the titanic ape Gigantopithecus blacki. One of the main predators for Sumatran rhinos may have generally been tigers. Today, this would be the smaller Sumatran tiger, which would largely pose a threat to the calves more so than the adults. In the mainland, it could have consisted of larger subspecies, whether it be the early Pleistocene's one-scene tiger, or the modern-day Bengal, Indo-Chinese, South China, and/or Malayan tigers. There's also the elusive Bornean tigers, which are present in the fossil record and would have likely preyed on rhinos, but their potential survival on the island is currently rather dubious. Another potential threat would be wild dogs such as dholes, and during the Ice Age could have also included larger canids, Asiatic spotted hyenas, other early pantherines, and saber-toothed cats. While the only population of leopards in Indonesia is situated on the island of Java, it's possible that subspecies such as the Indian leopard and Indo-Chinese leopard would have posed a threat to Sumatran rhino calves in the mainland. However, the cases of mainland leopards hunting Asian rhinos doesn't seem to be as well documented as compared to their African counterparts. The mainland clouded leopard and insular Sunda clouded leopards would hardly pose a threat given their diminished size in comparison to their sister relatives. Same goes for other small felids such as fishing cats, Asian golden cats, marbled cats, and more. Bears are also another common group of carnivorans within the Sumatran rhino's range, where it once would have included the likes of Asiatic black bears, giant pandas, sloth bears, and potentially Eurasian brown bears during the Pleistocene, among several other extinct genera. Today, only the sun bears coexist with Sumatran rhinos in Indonesia. Other carnivorans include small mammals such as civets, mongooses, red pandas, mustelids such as the hog badger, ferret badgers, otters, martens, various fox species, and more. Along several river basins and coastlines in Asia, cetaceans would also be a common mammal. These could and can include toothed whales such as the Baiji river dolphin, Irrawaddy dolphin, along with many other oceanic dolphins and massive baleen whales. Outside of the mammals, reptiles are also common in the Sumatran rhino's range, both present and former. These include crocodiles such as the mugger crocodile, Siamese crocodile, and the saltwater crocodile. In the mainland, these rhinos would have likely encountered the gharial, while in Sumatra they're more likely to cross paths with false gharials. Squamates such as Asian water monitor lizards, reticulated and Burmese pythons, king cobras, and more are also present from the Indian subcontinent to the Sunda Islands. Sumatran rhinos would also live with a great variety of birds ranging from peafowls to falcons and hawks, herons, ducks, and pheasants, just to name a few groups, on top of the wide variety of amphibians and fish located in East Asia. To call the biodiversity of the Sumatran rhino's range vast would certainly be an understatement. Because of their million years of existence, these rhinos were able to exist with many unique creatures that have come and gone, making it difficult to list every single animal that has been found in its range from both past and present. While many of the Ice Age giants of southern Asia are gone, hopefully the Sumatran rhino could one day roam the Himalayas and the eastern forests once again. Despite its taxonomic significance, the Sumatran rhinoceros has suffered through a rough history as the world transitioned into the Holocene epoch. Starting with the climatic and geological changes following the end of the Pleistocene, the rising sea levels caused the Sumatran rhino's range to become fragmented as land bridges connecting the Sunda Islands to the mainland became submerged. With this significant loss of space, their gene flow may have also been heavily affected. While they managed to outlive their northern counterparts, their problems did not vanish, especially in regards to their overlapping with humans. Like its other African and Asian relatives, these rhinos were impacted by several factors during the modern day, ranging from destruction of habitat to persistent hunting, whether it be from poaching for their horns to be used as traditional medicine or recreational drugs, to being killed on account of being considered a pest by farmers. By the 20th century, the Sumatran rhino was wiped out from its historic range of India, Bhutan, China, Thailand, and Cambodia, residing predominantly within Malaysia and the Indonesian archipelago. At this point, the species was destined to go extinct. Around 1984, several conservationists, one of them being Tom Foos, coordinator for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, met up at Singapore to discuss plans for a breeding program that would aim to help save this unique species. The program would begin with the capture of several wild individuals, which were then transported to zoos across the United States. One rhino expert that was present in the meeting, Rudolf Schenkel, was against the idea, believing that the rhinos shouldn't be taken out of their environment. He was overruled and the program was set into motion. At first, the results were less than stellar, as several rhinos died from various ailments, including tetanus and other complications that arose from their capture. Others died due to an inadequate diet, as zoo staff would soon come to learn that Sumatran rhinos could not eat hay and required their natural food source. During this period of repeated failures in maintaining their welfare and high mortality rates, not a single rhino calf was born, and it began to seem as if this ambitious and well-intended project would be their downfall. In 1995, both the Los Angeles Zoo and the Bronx Zoo sent their females to the Cincinnati Zoo, home of Ipu, the only male rhino to have survived the transfer. The care of the Sumatran rhinos was entrusted to Dr. Terry Roth, the zoo's director of Center for Conservation and Research of Endangered Wildlife. Under her care, the zoo had its first successful birth with a male named Andalus. 5 years later, a female named Suki was born. In 2007, Hairpin was born in the Cincinnati Zoo to parents Ipu and Emmy. In 2012, a female named Ratu gave birth to a male calf named Endatu. Endatu was the son of Andalus and the first Sumatran rhino to be born in captivity in Indonesia. Sadly, on March 30th, 2014, Suki passed away due to complications from hemochromatosis, also known as iron storage disease. This unfortunately also completely ended plans to have her breed with Tam, a male rhino originating from the Malaysian side of Borneo, or even more shockingly, with her younger brother Hairpin. Around this time, geneticists had proposed mixing the two remaining subspecies as a last-ditch effort to preserve the species. This received some pushback from several conservationists, however, due to their 300,000 years of genetic divergence. One compromise that was suggested was maintaining a pure Western group that can be relocated to Sumatra, and a mixed population between the Western and Bornean subspecies that can be used for rewilding in Borneo. In 2015, the Cincinnati Zoo made the difficult decision of sending Hairpin away, as every captive Sumatran rhino living in the US at the time was being transported back to the Sunda Islands to continue expanding their native population. In the same year, the population of Sumatran rhinos in Sabah, the Malaysian side of Borneo, was declared extirpated, meaning they were now locally extinct. In 2016, following a 40-year absence, a female Sumatran rhino was discovered in the East Kalimantan region of Borneo, which was then captured and moved to a more secure place to protect her from poachers. That following year, Ratu gave birth to a female calf named Delilah, her second calf following the birth of Endatu back in 2012. On November 23, 2019, the last Sumatran rhino in Malaysia, Iman, passed away, causing the mainland population to be declared extinct and restricting them to the islands of Sumatra and Borneo. As previously mentioned, there have been occasional sightings of Sumatran rhinos in Myanmar long after they were declared extirpated, but the political instability within the nation has made it difficult to investigate and confirm their survival. With the passing of Iman, rhino conservationist John Payne, who was also present during the '84 meeting, and works as executive director for the Bornean Rhino Alliance, has expressed his frustrations with how both the Indonesian government and the rest of the world has handled the protection and breeding programs of these rhinos, to the point where he has suggested capturing more wild rhino individuals from Sumatra for use in these breeding programs, and to take the calves away from their mothers in less than a year to speed up the birth rate. Fortunately, in 2023, 2 rhino calves were born from the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary. In September, a female was born, another daughter of Ratu and Andalas, while in November, a male calf was born from parents Delilah and Harapan. On top of that, a female from East Kalimantan called Pahu had her eggs extracted and sent to an institute in Java to potentially be used for in vitro fertilization and possibly even for cloning. This was done on account of Pahu being too old for breeding, so with any luck, her extracted eggs can be used to make embryos that can be transferred into a surrogate mother. But the issues then arise with there only being 2 females from Sumatra that have given birth in the past, and the possibility of a miscarriage occurring. Sadly, the species' global population has continued to decline, and as of 2024, there's an estimated 34 to 47 Sumatran rhinos left in the world, making their situation seem all the more bleak. However, with some of the recent births, there's a chance that they could bounce back. On top of that, Sumatran rhinos could potentially play a big role in restoring a particular lost species. With several mummified specimens of the woolly rhinoceros excavated from Siberia, cloning could be an option for these extinct animals in an attempt to restore lost Pleistocene ecosystems to better combat anthropogenic climate change. With the Sumatran rhino being their closest living relative, there's a high chance of them being used as a surrogate parent for a cloned specimen, but that will ultimately depend on whether or not we will be able to increase their population. For now, by supporting their conservation programs and the sanctuaries and nature reserves that provide them shelter, we can play our part in helping to protect and hopefully save the Sumatran rhino, the last woolly rhino. Thank you so much for watching our first episode of Extant Files. We really hope you enjoyed this one. This video was a blast to make, and we look forward to covering more modern day animals in this series. This video was directed and narrated by myself, RangoGamer, and was scripted by myself in the Primal Earth. It was also edited by myself, the Primal Earth, MikeMC9797, SpinoDragon145 Productions, LegitEliminator, and CrimsonAcro. Animations were done by Mephilas Seijin101, and lastly, the research was also done by myself. Additionally, be sure to check out my other channel, Phylum Studios, where I cover both modern and prehistoric animals, along with cryptids, folkloric creatures, and the latest conservational news. Uploads are slow at the moment, but I do have multiple videos planned, so hopefully there will be more soon. And with that, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time on Epoch Now.